Hello and welcome to MySecurity TV and our Tech and Sec Weekly. My name is Chris Cubbage. I'm the Executive Editor and Director with MySecurity Media, and this is our Friday morning episode. We're going to be joined by Greg Alone, Greg Alone, Regional VP and ANZ with Epicor. We're going to be looking at driving Australia's manufacturing renaissance, adoption of cloud-based solutions for business. Greg has been in the seat for about 4 years with Epicor, which has been around for some time. So very interesting on their SaaS model for ERP. And then we're going to be looking at understanding data literacy with Kshira Saagar, who's the Chief Data Officer with Latitude Financial Services. What is data literacy and why is it important? So looking forward to these particular interviews this morning. And then we'll also cut these out as our Cybersecurity Weekly podcast. We cover off on aerospace and space, defence and national security, cybersecurity and critical technology, and cities and infrastructure. We should be streaming on our YouTube, LinkedIn and Facebook channels. Our main Facebook channel is the Asia Pacific Security Magazine, and we should be going for at least 45 to 50 minutes today, but also welcome to tune in, let us know where you're listening from, and say g'day. But if you're interested in cloud computing or data science, then this is a session for you. Just to follow up from yesterday, this was a pre-recorded session, but it was released yesterday afternoon from Elmo in our interview with the CEO, Danny Lessam, just on employees open to employers mandating COVID-19 vaccinations. And this was on their Employee Sentiment Index, ESI findings. Quite an interesting session, only goes for about 15 to 20 minutes, but some good insights into that report. And just what we've got coming up early next week, Manoj Kumar, Enterprise Business Director with Secure ID and their Identity Transformed interview. And also UK Space Industry Insights. This is on Tuesday, Black Arrow with Paul Williams and OnPrem Profiles M&D. Just one moment. Okay, everything's going okay. And also coming up, our CISO panel session. Just 1 second, folks. Sorry about that. It's just a slight interruption. Also coming up on the 10th of August, we have a CISO panel session. This is with Alex Lizo, Flybys, and Nick Savardis, Force Point. And that's going to be at 2 o'clock on the 10th of August. And just catching up from last week, we had the Bosch with Alan Hepburn X-Series review, and also Versic, Rob Nabilo, with Versic now entering the cybersecurity market here in Australia. Just some catch up on the podcasts. We also have released Rob's interview with Versic on our podcast show. We have our Cyber Risk Leaders magazine, issue 10, about to be released. And then also thank you to our sponsors, IT Glue. And then also their IT Glue webinar series is available on the MySecurity Marketplace. And then Secure ID RSA is also sponsoring us for the season. If you want to support the channel, please check out our Cyber War series on our MySec.tv shop and our merchandise. And that is enough from me on the Marketplace. And without further ado, I'll bring on Greg Alone, Regional VP of ANZ for Epicor. And Greg, thanks for joining us, mate.
No worries, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and sorry about that introduction. There was a slight technical issue at this end, which was quite distracting for me. But Greg, maybe introduce us to your role, and you've been with Epicor for a few years now, and it's quite an interesting company in terms of its SaaS model in ERP or Enterprise Resource Planning. Introduce us to Epicor.
Sure. Okay. My name's Greg, Regional Vice President here in the Australia-New Zealand market. I'm part of the leadership team of the global organisation. Epicor, Enterprise Resource Planning provider, obviously software company. We've been in the business for just on 50 years now, and we've been in that business for all that time. Our strategic focus in the market is on manufacturing, distribution, and aged care. And here, and specifically in the manufacturing market, it's specialized industries that we focus on, which gives us the benefit of working with our customers to build out a better product and solution to deliver to their needs.
And you mentioned you focus on those particular sectors, and this session we wanted to focus on manufacturing. And what's your observations in manufacturing? We have had the advanced manufacturing head, I can't remember what the name was, for the enterprise for Australia's resource sector and their manufacturing support. There's been quite a lot, and there's a lot of activity here in Australia in advanced manufacturing as well. So what are your observations, particularly on cloud adoption?
Yeah, well, it's been a very interesting journey over the past 12 months. I think we all can understand the impact of the pandemic and the changing needs and accelerated needs of customers to adapt to the environment. We're seeing a lot of our advanced manufacturing customers accelerate their plans and their needs and looking to increase their investments over time. In fact, in cloud, the trends have been pretty outstanding. And what we've seen over the past year is a massive acceleration in both the adoption of cloud and the desire to move to cloud within the next 12 months.
And how do you find in terms of the resource planning or an ERP model? And you're a cloud provider as well. You're providing the cloud services as well as a SaaS model.
Yeah, it's a SaaS model in the public cloud environment. We partner with Microsoft on Azure.
Right.
That gives us the underlying infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, that we build our application on top of. So we deliver the ERP software application. Microsoft, as our partner, provides us with the infrastructure globally to be able to deliver that infrastructure in obviously best in class.
And what should be, I suppose the scale of the company itself and what they are actually making. Do they kind of need to get to that SaaS model earlier? I mean, are you finding that transformation occurring where they're moving from on-prem in the cloud? And we're going to be looking at data literacy next in terms of the analytics that they can then start to get into their business. Where do you find the real business case for them? And also, we always hear the term journey. We overuse the term journey, but where do they kind of start? Do you find it's how much should they be planning for in terms of time frames and resources?
Well, the driving need for our customers and our prospective customers is certainly around adoption of new technology, improved workflows, automation, AI, and the underlying infrastructure that supports that is provided by cloud in a much easier way for customers to adopt. And we have the privilege of, as a vendor, of offering both on-premise and cloud solutions of the same software, which means that our customers get an honest choice, the same functionality, same capability. However, with cloud, it's a lot easier to adopt newer technology, stay current, and of course the underlying security issues that are prevailing at the moment, given the increased activity around cyber threats. Customers are both nervous about those cyber threats and desire to get their outcomes and to get those faster. So what we're seeing is many, not just the early adopters now moving to cloud. It's the customers that are looking to mobilize their business and achieve their outcomes faster. And analytics is a key one. Mobility is another one. If I can access from the cloud, I can connect data a lot faster, a lot easier, and give me that analytics that I need to make the decisions quicker and also push those decisions further down in the organization. Sitting in an isolation with a data analyst giving you information on a monthly or quarterly basis isn't good enough anymore.
Yeah.
Enabling the employees with an organization to have the same analytics and to be able to make decisions as they go and adapt to the needs that they've got then and there.
Who do you tend to deal with at the client end as well? Are you dealing with the CIO or a CTO? Where do you find that you are sort of engaging with the customers and then what they need in train as well to sort of adopt a new platform?
So we talk mostly with some sort of mid to large manufacturing organisations, typically not the enterprise level. However, we do deal with divisions of larger enterprise. In those organisations, we are talking to predominantly the C-level. We find that the IT team or a business owner will be driving the initiative or the program, but the CIO, CFO, and really the CEO are in the room for a lot of the time, because their organisation realises that they need to serve the needs of those executives and the visibility that they need and the outcomes that they're looking for. So our conversations are generally not an IT conversation, it's a business outcome conversation. And we've seen quite a massive shift, I'm sure, as everyone has, in the CIO's role isn't purely just the technology running the security layer, the phones and the desktop application. They're running business outcomes, and they're transitioned quite dramatically into helping the organisation to get better business outcomes, not just reliability in their IT systems.
So they obviously understand where things are heading and where they need to move their business. Now, you acquired, or Epicor acquired, a KBMax, which is the configure price quote and also a visualization tool. Maybe talk us through KBMax and how that's fitting in and that acquisition's bedding down.
Yeah, look, KBMax is one of the leaders in CPQ space, and what was appealing to Epicor was this visualization piece. We work extensively with our customers when they're coming from the design process, maybe in their CAD application, through the ERP, and then delivering product on the other end. So it's just taking that Epicor to the next step. You're an ERP, you're traditionally seen as a back office application running financials and business processes or manufacturing shop floor processes. This extends that out to the customer. That customer could be a commercial or a B2B environment, or could in fact be a consumer in an e-commerce environment, where you can take that plan and quite quickly show that plan and give the user the ability to customize on a website through the CPQ process, visualize what they want, and have that come back through into the system and impact right back up to the designer.
Okay, so and what's the turnaround time on that? So and when you're talking about manufacturing, you can start to sort of tweak your manufacturing process, maybe even the materials and the suppliers, to start to control and tweak your price. Is that how real time it can be, or how much tweaking can you get out of something like this?
Well, if you think about the configuration and what you're building, if you're building to stock or if you're building to order, your turnaround times are in fact improved. The direct impact from the customer's need back into the organisation, it's taking out a couple of those steps that can get in the way, can cause either a delay or a misunderstanding. It's that direct feedback back into the ERP. And once again, if you're looking for a system to run your business, you want as much data in one place as possible to be able to make those decisions. Then that impacts, if we come back to the analytics side, what trends are we seeing here on the outside from a customer, directly impacting the decisions that are being made by employees within your manufacturing organisation to quickly adapt to those needs. And it's the where and when. We've seen that there's supply chain interruptions. Where are we seeing that demand coming from at the moment? Can we adapt? What do we need to change? Is our supply chain need to change, or is our warehousing model need to change?
Well, we've spoken to some up in Queensland. I'm trying to find our interview with, I think it's the AMCG, the Growth Network, the Advanced Manufacturing Growth Network. Thank you. It's finally come to me. We spoke to their CEO and the range of projects. We've also spoken to a number of sort of startups up in Queensland. Do you find they can move, say, from a new commercialization project, move to manufacturing faster using something like this as well, in terms of bedding everything in early and being almost cloud native in their ERP approach?
Well, absolutely. Cloud native is part of that. There's a great example of Energy Renaissance, probably one of the best funded startups at the moment in the energy business, and sustainable energy is certainly it's something that they've found a model, or created a model, that's able to take local raw materials and turn those into batteries locally. Now, they're still building that out. They're still building their factory, in fact. Yep. But the first thing that they've put in is the ERP. So the ERP is going in, and they're starting with that process with the financials, straight into Epicor Cloud, so they can take that piece, get that in, get the underlying business infrastructure in place, whilst they're building the business itself.
Well, you mentioned CAD as well. We've interviewed on sort of there's whole CAD systems, the new SCADA sort of network systems are also from Mitsubishi are on Azure as well. So you could literally design in a cloud environment, sort of in that sort of advanced design phase, and then take that all the way through before anything comes off the conveyor belt, so to speak. You know what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, and where you're going to get those suppliers from, and tweak it along that way. Is that model that I'm visualizing there is possible?
Well, look, absolutely. Think about the end-to-end.
Yeah.
I'm a CAD designer. If I'm doing visualizations, which more and more are moving to 3D visualizations, the processing power required to turn out some of these complex designs gets more and more. And if you think right up into including visualizing an entire building or a piece of manufactured product. Design that in a SaaS-based CAD application, but the visualization power can be, the grunt is there. The connectivity of those systems, because I want to take the bill of materials out of the CAD product straight into the ERP, so I know what I've got to order from where, and what sort of timeframes I'm dealing with. And to then, if you think about this KBMax thing, to then be able to deliver that quicker to a consumer and start getting feedback and responses on that design. That whole process is quicker because the cloud is allowing all that to be connected, and obviously the consumer, it's critical for them to be able to connect to that as well.
What's your integration like? I imagine it's pretty open API type integration.
Standard
on Azure, right?
Yeah, that's it. So that's almost table stakes these days. If any closed infrastructure or architecture is very limiting, we find that our customers have many and varied other systems, not just CAD. Right? What am I doing in other pieces of my business? They might use our CRM component that's in our ERP as a native product, or they might want to use something like Salesforce.com. Integration is critical. What do I want to use? Which piece of the CRM do I want to use? I might want to use some other third-party CPQ tool. We still need to be open. We can't force them to take KBMax whilst we'll promote it to, it may well be the most suitable, but they've got a decision's already made in that piece. So in manufacturing, it could be 10 to 15 applications that need to be integrated, and the core piece that sits in the middle, of course, is the ERP. That's where every user and every employee is going to integrate, and of course the users. In aged care, it's upwards of 30 applications.
Well, we'll touch on aged care. Just one question on what's the business model? Is it a subscription model based on users? How do you what's the subscription sort of model or business model for this?
Yeah, or being SaaS, it's natively a subscription model based on concurrent users from how we sell. But on premise, there's still based on a concurrent user model, but it's sold on a perpetual basis with a trial maintenance. So you can buy on premise in a subscription model. Very few people opt to do that. But this dynamic of subscription, it's what isn't a subscription these days?
That's right. Well, that's why I asked the question, just in case someone else comes up with a fascinating business model. Is it something that they can adopt on-prem prior to sort of a migration to cloud, and start to put some applications up in the cloud, but they can implement this? And maybe what's the cutoff between your clients, your client base of who's on-prem and who's in cloud? Are you finding that's shifting? And sort of what is the percentage breakdown now?
Yeah, quite a big shift. So the on-prem versus cloud, if we take it from a new inquiry, so what we're seeing coming through in our lead flow, we're seeing 90% plus inquiries are straight off the bat cloud. Right. I'm looking for a cloud ERP solution. That shift from last year, that's a dramatic change. On business that we're actually closing, in the last quarter, 60% of our new business was SaaS, and 40%. 12 months ago, it was the other way around.
Right.
So it's quite a rapid change. And look, the impacts are many and varied, but pandemic, working from home, desire to adopt a lot more mobility. We're seeing that rapidly grow, and people wanting everything mobile. No one native mobile now. There's a big push away from apps, into native mobility that can run on any device. So
you mentioned the pandemic, working from home. Is it any other drivers, do you think, from the business? Is it they're seeing competitors? Is it just 5G coming? Any other kind of indicators there, or is it just a natural migration and maybe answer that one, and I've got another one in terms of the region. If you're in the region rather than Australia, maybe where Australia fits with what your observations are for APAC.
Okay, well, look, I think the reasons do really come down to business needs and what can I do as an organisation to set myself up for change. What's going to happen next year? A pandemic is one thing, and we all obviously know that this pandemic will pass. Yeah. But what is the next pandemic? What is the next business disruption? Cyber security is one of those key drivers as well. That's been quite disruptive, driving certainly a lot of executives. And I hear recently that the government is looking to make directors' liabilities on cyber threats. I find that as an interesting threat.
My view is that they've always been liable. They just have to now. I think the stick's getting bigger, but I think directors are liable anyway. Maybe you've touched on cyber. Are you hearing a lot of inquiries on that from your clients? Their expectations on the security of your platform and what they need to be doing at their end to make sure it remains secure?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing that both in existing customers, but in an on-premise environment. In the cloud environment, the questions really is how secure is Epicor? How secure is your infrastructure and your architecture to any vulnerabilities or threats that might happen? The simple answer is highly secure, and a lot more secure than most organisations would be able to afford. We obviously have the end-to-end security behind the cloud infrastructure, and there's a lot of inputs coming in to that system from users all over the place. So we take that responsibility from our customer. However, they still need to protect other assets and infrastructure. I think the tensions with neighbouring countries are driving, I think, an increased concern. I don't think it's boiling over concern, but increased concern of what's going to happen with tensions. Simply another disruption at the moment. Is that going to be long term? What is the government doing about it? What can I do about it? So certain organisations are moving to onshore simply for that reason, where I can control a lot more of my end-to-end. And energy renaissance is a great example of that. If you can have complete supply and manufacturing and turn batteries into an export rather than import, that's a great business model. And they've done that with a model of doing all of that onshore. So, I look at that across a number of our customers and their needs around having the decision makers a lot closer and the customers closer and turn into an export opportunity. Our defence customers are typically operating in both a domestic and an export market, albeit a limited export market for a number of our customers who have specialised defence systems. And their needs are then a compliance need when you move into defence, aerospace or defence, and compliance and management of that. And Epicor's ability to comply with their needs around that.
You mentioned, we are talking obviously advanced manufacturing. Are you in the aerospace and space market as well? Are you finding that is growing here in Australia?
Certainly, the customers that we've got are growing their investments, and there's ongoing initiatives of Epicor to address the aerospace and defence markets. Some of our existing customers have significant plans, and there's a albeit limited amount of investment coming from the government to drive that. We're seeing that increase, and we're seeing the ability of our customers. Some have moved from a niche player into quite substantial organisations and grown with us gladly over time. And the number of inquiries was probably up 50% year over year from customers or organisations in that space.
Well, look, maybe just touch on, we haven't touched on sort of the aged care, and we've just had a Royal Commission into aged care, and you focus on that sector as well. And you've had some comment on the vaccine rollout and how cloud could be using. Would your ERP be suitable to say vaccine rollout as well, or is it just general aged care management that you're referring to?
Well, so there's many things in that. Certainly, we aren't used with vaccine distribution. I think the underlying point with the vaccinations is the amount of data and we're all looking at, most of us, I imagine, are looking at the data day by day. I'm really happy to see that Australia's reached the 10% point of 2 vaccinations. Celebrate a small milestone. I know it's not
that's right.
Let's celebrate the milestone. That data is available to me, and this global data is available to me because of the cloud.
Yeah.
It couldn't be done otherwise. This information couldn't be connected so quickly and accurately without the infrastructure of the cloud. So, Epicor is a piece of that. Our cloud infrastructure provides data in the fact that our customers are feeding information in particular supply chains, and we have pieces of our customers are within the manufacturing process of vaccinations.
Yep.
So pieces, and the manufacturer might well be a sleeve within a conduit. It could be different pieces. So our customers participate in that, and they have mobilised off that need to be able to track data. With the amount of parts and wear and tear you go through with the vaccination production in the volume never seen before, putting a lot of pressure on the manufacturers of providing components within that supply chain.
Well, look, what's the plans for Epicor sort of the next 12 to 18 months? Anything you've got lined up, or do you find, you're just responding to these inquiries, as you say, there's a shift over to cloud, moved over to that 60% range, or do you find, where's Epicor from? Are you Australian? Where is it, US or UK?
Cover that. So we're a private equity owned. It's a company called CD&R. We were owned by KKR, which are probably better known current owners. We're American, based in Austin, Texas. We've got presence all around the world, about 4,000 employees. And what we're seeing, the outlook is certainly more around cloud native applications, building around better processes for our customers to help them deliver their outcomes. And the poster behind me, on that side, made with you, for you, is really where we work very closely with our customers around the needs that they've got and the trends that they're seeing, and adapting to that as quickly as possible.
And how do you find? Do you have a partner in Asia Pacific? Where's your other office in APAC? Is it Singapore? We have all over the place in Asia. So there'd be multiple places in Hong Kong, China, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand. So we've got quite a big coverage. And to your point earlier, sorry, I didn't cover that with the difference between the markets. Yeah,
cloud is a lot more mature in this market. I think we are, in this region, Australia and New Zealand are early adopters of technology. So, of course, that goes without saying, we're adopting cloud faster. There are certain issues around, like China, the Great China Firewall is an issue to work around. Having on-prem means that we can sell in China. Customers can run themselves without the fear of being blocked. However, we do have a number of customers that operate from a cloud outside of China, maybe in our Singapore data center, in the Azure data center in Singapore, where they're not getting blocked. So we haven't had any customers blocked yet, but that's always a concern of what the Chinese government might do to block a cloud provider. So on-premise is a typical good answer to that, but it's not the only answer, right?
Well, I think, again, can you segregate it so you can have some aspects of the ERP in the cloud in terms of what your supply is, and then you might have the critical aspects on-prem? I take it you can segment it?
Yeah, look, we've got a number of customers operating that way. So here in Australia, actually, we've got one customer who decided to go cloud in their US subsidiary. They're going to run a separate cloud instance here in Australia. They haven't done that piece yet, but in China, they've got on-prem.
Right.
That's simply connected, and you get your multi-company reporting to be able to give you that, so you can see obviously your performance, but you also can see what's going on the ground.
Yeah.
And that gives I suppose, that increased flexibility to be able to do that. I think ideally you do want to be in one data center, have everything in one place, but it's obviously logical, given the tensions that are going on, that you might want to de-risk your business and run a different model. So there are many choices, and I suppose that's the advantage of being a vendor that runs the same application on cloud and on-prem.
Yeah. And one last question on skills. Are you finding the supply of skills for cloud services okay here in Australia, or are you finding that they're in high demand?
Look, they are in high demand. There are some limitations. We're not seeing any major red flags at the moment. We do have a number of resources in India, and we're seeing quite an impact in India at the moment. I mean, hearing about individuals who've lost family members is devastating, and that does impact certain processes that we might be utilising our India resources for, but we then have coverage in other regions to be able to back that up. But there's a fair bit of pressure on that. Locally, we're not seeing the impact on resources around the technology itself. And in our aged care, we are seeing a lot of pressure on our customers, and maybe a lot of aged care providers and workers were coming from the immigration side of it, and that lack of immigration is putting a lot of pressure on the aged care industry to get employees. They need connected cloud systems to be able to move people around quickly and have the one system. You can't have someone coming into one facility on one system into another facility on a different system. So you need to be able to transport quite simply. And in aged care, there's a lot of mobility, as we've seen with the pandemic, where people will work across multiple facilities. Lockdowns prevailing, that means they're tied to one facility for a certain amount of time. So that flexibility of the cloud gives them that user the ability to have a more seamless technology experience, because running 3 or 4 different systems throughout your week is quite painful, but particularly for a care worker who's on the front line.
Yeah, absolutely. And given in the current environment where some of the sort of the back end team will be working from home as well. Well, look, Greg, that's a fascinating area. Thank you so much for your time this morning and diving into enterprise resource planning and SaaS models. Thank you for that insight. I'm going to put you backstage. Our next guest hasn't quite joined us yet, so it's one of those shows this morning, unfortunately, but that's live webinar TV for you. But we've been joined by Greg Alone, Regional Vice President for Australia and New Zealand with Epicor on their SaaS model. Thank you so much, Greg. Appreciate your time and have a great day.
Thanks, Chris. You too, mate.
Good on you. Okay, there we go. What I'm going to do is just walk through our report of the day. We'll give Kshira just another sort of 5 or so minutes before I tune out. If you've got any comments or questions or want to say good day, please let us know in the chats. But otherwise, our report of the day is the Asia Pacific Travel Recovery Report from Kappa and also Collinson. Some interesting findings there. So if you were a traveller before March 2020, this might be of interest to you. And let me just blow this up a little bit more. There we go. 33%. So they've obviously done a survey here. 33% of respondents expect a full global recovery by the end of 2022. So that's late 22, about 15% there. And 67% of respondents expect a full global recovery by the end of 2023 or later. So somewhere even going out to 2024 and 2025 there. But again, it does look like it's going to be another 12 or 18 months before we start to get back to normal, according to most views. Asia Pacific respondents on aviation and travel activity returning to 2019 levels. 31% expect a full recovery by 2023. And again, most of that is leaning to 2023, 2024, or 2025 or later. And then finally, traveller passports. This was an interesting one, particularly on fraudulent COVID-19 test results and vaccination passports. We're seeing a bit of this here even in Australia in terms of some sort of fraudulent activity, fake COVID-19 tests and the like, and what people are up to during lockdown periods. Traveller passports, 67% will be of vital importance. Governments won't reopen without them. 25% and 8% there saying they're not going to be important, or 8% not relevant. But I would suggest we will be travelling with passports relating to our vaccines. And then about just under 40% of the respondents were concerned on that fraudulent COVID-19 test results and vaccination passports. We already have false documentation and fraudulent documentation in relation to travel and identity. So test results and vaccination passports will also no doubt fall into that category. just to follow up on what we've been doing, I'm going to tune out if Kshira can't join us this morning. He did have another session come up, which we had to push him back for. So fair enough if he can't make it. Just a final call out. This was made live yesterday with Danny Lessam, the CEO of Elmo, on their employee sentiment index findings. And we'll be back on Tuesday with insights into the UK space industry and our interview with Paul Williams, founder and director with Black Arrow Space Technologies, and also their global investment opportunities. This is going to be at 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time to align with Europe. And also we're going to be joined by Leo Levitt, who is the chair with OnViv, and they've just released profiles M and D. Profile M looks at the video analytics sector, and Profile D looks at access control peripherals. So they're new profiles for your video surveillance systems. So look, that's it from us from the marketplace. Just the one guest with Greg alone with Epicor, and appreciate that. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you again on Tuesday. Thanks for joining us on Tech and Sec Weekly with MySecTV.